This. Brad, welcome to the podcast. It's so great to chat with you today.
It's great to be here, Holly. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I really appreciate the work you've done so much. I know it's helped me so much, so I'm just excited to chat with you more about um, your new book and some of the topics in it, especially when it comes to working with endurance athletes. It's kind of the main audience here of the show. But just in case people don't know who you are, could you tell us who you are, where you're located, and what you do?
Sure. My name is Brad. I'm located in Asheville, North Carolina, and I wear two hats. I guess really three hats. The first hat is an author, a writer. I write applied nonfiction books. So this new book is called The Way of Excellence. I'm really interested in the core factors that underlie human flourishing and human performance. The second hat that I wear is as a mental skills coach. So I work with clients on the topics that I write about. And then the third hat that I wear as is professor. I'm adjunct faculty at the University of Michigan School of Public Health, where I lecture in their leadership and personal development course for graduate students.
Awesome. That's great. That's like, yeah, true entrepreneurship. Lots of different moving parts. Yeah. And
That's
I
how it
know,
goes.
yeah, I know. And I know you too. I've been following you and your work for a long time. I know you're also have like a pretty robust fitness practice. You've been involved in like a couple different sports. And I know we're talking to endurance athletes, and I know you used to run and kind of had made the transition more to like lifting. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I've switched sports before too, and I just always find that super interesting.
Yeah, so I guess you could say I'm kind of switching, but also returning. So
Cool.
growing up, I was a power sport athlete. I played basketball and football. And by high school, towards late high school, my senior year, I specialized in football. I thought I was going to play college football. Decided that I wanted to have a big school experience. So I went to the University of Michigan, and I was not good enough to play there. So that was the end of my football career. And it was in undergraduate school that I got the endurance sport bug. So, like
Mhm.
so many people, I ran a half marathon and then a marathon. I ran it very poorly and I got hooked. And then I wanted to run it faster and faster. And then from there, I got the triathlon bug. And unfortunately, I got the long course triathlon bug. I say unfortunately because it takes a lot of time and it's very expensive. So I raced half Ironman in Ironman triathlons. And then about a decade ago, I'd been dealing with a condition called chronic exertional compartment syndrome,
Oh, yeah.
uh, which is essentially a sensation of just deep pain and pressure in your calf that
Mhm.
gets worse with exertion. And it kept worsening and worsening. I finally got a diagnosis. I tried to have a surgical repair, and it made it a little bit better, but really not enough where I felt like I could continue training at the level that I had been. And I think as I got older, my tolerance for pain and discomfort in that way, especially since I'm not a pro athlete, just went down. So when my first child was born, this is 8 years ago now, I decided that the cycle of training hard and being injured and being uncomfortable just wasn't sustainable. So I shifted out of endurance sports and back into the weight room. And for the last 8 years, I still don't really call myself a power lifter because it has such a meathead connotation. But by definition, I have been doing the powerlifting lifts in the gym. And now my endurance sport is really just long walks with my dog.
Nice. And the compartment syndrome's kind of better with that sport
I can,
switch.
yeah, the compartment syndrome doesn't bother me at all in the gym. It really is just running and cycling.
Yeah.
But for the endurance sport listeners, I ran, I don't know, 15 marathons. I went
Nice.
301. I was devastatingly close to getting under that 3 hour barrier. I didn't. I broke 10 hours for an Ironman, which at the
Nice.
time felt very cool. So I was in it. I was a serious amateur endurance athlete.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I always think it's interesting when we change like sports and it kind of changes, yeah, like the flow of your daily life because like you said, training for an Ironman is a big deal. It takes a ton of hours. And I used to ride horses competitively and I did it semi-professionally for a bit after college and kind of burnt out of like the politics of that sport and then caught the distance bug and ended up running and here we are. But yeah, I always find it super interesting. And it sounds like, yeah, practicing a whole lot of what you preach, where if the process is starting to become like really burdensome, the destination isn't necessarily worth putting yourself through all of that pain all the time.
Yeah, that's right. I was constantly getting stress fractures in my heel because I just didn't have any blood flow through my calf because of the compartment syndrome. So I was just like always walking on eggshells in my training. And yeah, at a certain point, it became tedious. You know, relationship therapists often say that when the pain of being in the relationship is greater than the pain of leaving it, that's when it's time to leave it. And I felt like that happened with my relationship with endurance sports. Physical and emotional pain, because the emotional pain is just anxiety about when's the heel going to break again. And then the physical pain is, you know, your calf is just always hurting. So it was a really tough transition. For the first couple of weeks, it was very dislocating. If I'm being totally honest, I'd remember seeing runners outside and feeling like a shot of anxiety through my entire body
Yeah.
because it's like, oh, like I'm not that anymore. Like, what does this mean? I'm not that. Um, and that lasted probably for the better part of a month, maybe even 2 months. But eventually, I realized that what I actually am is an athlete and someone that loves being in touch with their body and pushing their limits. And running was one way to express that, but there are so many other ways to express that. Um, and I never left the running community. So many of my closest friends are still runners. I co-host a podcast with Steve Magnus, who's like the mayor of the running community.
Yeah.
So it also I think I realized that just because I'm not doing the sport doesn't mean I still can't be a part of it.
Yeah, I think that's very relatable. I've definitely been like out of running before and continue to coach people who are runners and help them meet their goals through nutrition and training and all that. And I'm like, oh no, I still love this. This is still really fun to talk about. So I love that and definitely relate to it. And thank you for sharing all of that. When we kind of come to your book and your work, I'm super curious, like just to kind of get started. So your new book, that's coming out at the time of the release of this podcast. It'll be out this week. And we'll tell everyone how to go get it. But you called it The Way of Excellence. I'm curious as to what made you kind of want to write all of these topics like into a book and why you titled it The Way of Excellence and not like The Way of Achievement or Success or Optimization or some of the other things that you discuss as being kind of like imposters of excellence in the book.
Yeah, so I think that there's a big difference between pseudo excellence and genuine excellence. So pseudo excellence is perfectionism. It is being obsessed with achievement. It is hustle culture greatness. It's having a 47-step routine. It's cold plunging at 4 a.m. all alone on your back deck and then posting a video of yourself on Instagram, flexing your perfect abs as hard as you can while you cold plunge. None of those things are actual excellence. You look at elite athletes and none of them are doing any of that stuff. It's like all elaborate kabuki that masquerades as the real thing. And what I wanted to do with this project, especially in the first part of the book, is to reclaim genuine heartfelt excellence. And what genuine heartfelt excellence is really simple. It's caring very deeply about something and giving it your all in a way that aligns with your values and goals. So it's caring deeply, giving something your all, and doing it with integrity. And I think that that is one of the most important things that any of us can aspire towards. And the result of that is this deep satisfaction and fulfillment and feeling of aliveness and connection to ourselves, and in some cases, connection to others. Um, and that is not a destination, that's a process, that is a way. So the book isn't called Be Excellent or Achieve Excellence. It's called The Way of Excellence because it is this ongoing path, it's this ongoing process.
Yeah, I love that approach that you take there. And like, I feel it really relates well to so many of my clients. And I say things like this all the time where it's like your health isn't like a destination that you just like achieve, one day. A good relationship with like food or running or your body or anything isn't just like, there's no finish line. So I really like, yeah, kind of identifying it as a process that's ongoing when it comes to kind of like that pursuit of the way of excellence, which I know in the book you talk about how you really believe we're all kind of like hardwired to pursue that. I know you say it kind of helps like get us out of our mind and into our bodies and into our being a little bit more. Can you talk a little bit more about what that means? And like, I think a lot of self-help books these days are kind of just like, you just have to like change your mindset and like think your way there. And I know you kind of dissect how that's not necessarily helpful.
Yeah, I think that it's funny I said I think, but we are thinking on this podcast. I think that it is almost impossible to think your way to a certain state or a certain path. There's all sorts of research now that shows that our thoughts actually follow our behaviors, not the other way around. So it used to be we have to think that we're going to be really motivated. We have to think about doing something to learn the skill. What research shows is we actually often have to just get started and do the thing, and then we feel good as a result. And we learn not just cognitively by making mental models in our mind, we learn by actually doing the skill. This is why cues are so important, especially in coaching athletes. So you don't tell a swimmer that you want to put your wrist in the water at a 30-degree angle. You tell a swimmer, feel your hand cut through the water. You don't tell a swimmer that you want to create surface area on your palm to generate force. You tell a swimmer, feel yourself pushing the water back. It's no different than a runner who has that springy feeling, hopefully, when they're ready for a good workout and they're recovered versus the feeling of dead legs when they're not recovered. So excellence is very much a process of getting in touch with your body and learning to read it and also feeling your way towards your best performance. I also think this is true when we observe excellence. So when you watch Shalane Flanagan win the New York City Marathon a few years ago, or Chelsea Sodero win the Ironman World Championships, or Steph Curry or Caitlin Clark playing basketball, you don't think like, oh, Steph Curry's elbow position is at a perfect 90 degrees and he's shooting at the apex of his shot. Or you don't think like, look at Shalane's stride rate as she crosses the 25th mile. No, like you want to cry, like you feel it deep in your body. You're like, this is beautiful. And that same thing that we observe as witnesses is also what we feel when we're creating our own version of excellence. So it's very much like this deep-seated feeling, and it's long-rooted in our biology and evolution because our thinking brains are like the last piece of hardware that living species had. So for the longest time, species didn't think. They just felt their way to whatever was good for them. And that early genetic imprint has it left us.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. And I think people can relate to that too. Like running's one of those interesting sports, especially like marathoning, where, yeah, like if you were running the New York City Marathon that year, you were running the same course like as Shalane, who won, just a bit slower probably. But yeah, people get the same feeling on the same course, which is really interesting. And I think something you do a great job talking about in your work and in your book too is how that can apply to like when you're just not feeling it sometimes. Like
Yeah.
if you wake up on race day and you're like, I don't feel how I thought I was going to feel. Can you talk a little bit about, yeah, why like kind of almost following through with the plan sometimes and not the feeling can be important?
Yeah, there's so much nuance here. So yes, like excellence is very much a feeling state and you want to feel your way there. However, that nobody always feels great. And if
Yeah.
you wait to always feel great, then you're just going to be waiting forever. And these feelings are so complex. And regardless of what the marketers tell us, no, wrist-worn device or ring is ever going to perfectly predict how well we can perform. In a trap that type A, data-driven, slightly neurotic pushers, e.g., all endurance athletes, I know because I am one and I was one,
Yep.
have is that we dial in on those metrics because we think that like we can control our performance. If I just get the recovery score high enough, then I'll have a great performance. The truth is that human performance is so mysterious and magical, and that for as advanced as our sciences are, there's still so much that we don't know. And if we become a slave to some wrist-worn device or beholden to whatever we're feeling, then we really shortchange ourselves. There are so many stories that I came across in reporting the book where people ended up having their best performance when they felt absolutely terrible during the warm-up. And if during that warm-up they would have said, today's just not my day, can't do it, I don't feel great, then they never would have done it. But part of what helps elite performers be elite is they're able to say, I'm not feeling great in the warm up, but I'm still going to go through, execute the warm up. I'm going to start the race because you never know what's going to happen. I think a profound example of this recently is the golfer JJ Spawn, who recently won his first major championship in over, I think it was 15 years. And the night before playing his championship round, his son, excuse me, let me say it again. It was his daughter. I want to make sure I get this right. Woke up, his toddler daughter woke up in the middle of the night, like just horrendously vomiting. And his wife had to stay home with his daughter, and he had to go to the 24-hour CVS drugstore to get her medicine. And this is at 2 in the morning. Okay.
Parent
This,
life.
Yeah, exactly. I've been there, done that. But this is parent life the day before playing for a major championship on the biggest stage in the world. His recovery score, if he had a whoop on, would have been zero, right? Dude was literally in a car from 2 to 3 a.m. getting medicine for his vomiting daughter. He woke up the next day and he won a freaking golf major. I think like that is just a profound example of we're capable of so much more than we think sometimes. And if we let our in the moment feelings or in the moment circumstances dictate how we're going to perform, then they will. Whereas if we just show up and give ourselves a chance, we can always shut it down. Now, there's nuance because this is not an excuse to ignore all your feelings, right? If you haven't slept in a week and you tell yourself, I'm going to have my biggest session, maybe you get started and things go great, but 9 out of 10 times, they're actually not going to go great. And then you have to have the discipline and the maturity to shut it down. But I think that some people, they have a problem of pushing too hard when they should shut things down. But I think other people become too stressed about needing to feel a certain way that they never really give themselves a chance.
So well said. Yeah, I'd love to talk a little bit about um, kind of some of the pitfalls you discuss in the book where you're talking about excellence, which are kind of like, yeah, like rigidity and obsession,
Yeah.
where, yeah, I think probably the majority of my audience and clientele could relate, where, yeah, we are really, really relying on external data, external feedback. We're kind of unsure of ourselves and or yeah, we're like I got to follow the training plan to a T because I or else, my race isn't going to go as planned. Like why is it so important, I guess, to follow through with the plan and then also to kind of bridge the gap between have a little bit more going for your like identity than just the thing that you're trying to pursue when it comes to excellence.
So if the only thing that you identify with is your craft, then it makes you really fragile to missteps and failure.
Yeah.
So if you are just Holly the runner and you get Achilles tendonitis, for those 6 months that you're out, you're not going to know who you are. Or if you're just Holly the runner and you need to run a 2:45 marathon or whatever it is to feel like you're really a runner and you go 2:56, you're going to feel like crap as a person. Whereas if you are Holly, an individual who is a runner, but who is also a partner, a sister, a daughter, a family member, someone that loves dogs, someone that writes books, someone who's a dietitian, a coach, and on and on and on, then when you step onto the start line of that race, your entire sense of self worth won't be riding on the line. And not only is it mentally healthier, but you'll actually perform better as a result. So the metaphor that I love to use here and I use in the book is to think about identity like a house. And if you have a house and a house only has one room in it, and that one room catches fire or floods, you have to move out of the house altogether. It's going to be a completely disorienting experience. But if you've got a house that has more than one room in it, and one room catches fire or floods, you can go seek refuge in the other rooms while you work out the fire and the flood. And the same thing is true with our identity. We want to build identity houses that have more than one room. It's not to say that we need to be perfectly balanced. It's not to say that the rooms need to be the same size or that we need to spend the same amount of time and energy in each room. It's just to say it's super important to have more than one room. So maybe your biggest room is so and so Rachel the runner. That's great. That's fine. You care deeply about running. You identify with it. But it shouldn't be your only room. You should make sure that you have other rooms. And even when you're going all in on running, you never want to let other rooms get too moldy. You want to make sure that you check in with them just enough so that they're still truly a part of who you are.
I think that's such good advice. So many of the clients that I see too, like are recreational athletes, right? Like they're not professional athletes. They're not getting paid to do this. It's not their career. They do have other stuff going on, but it's really important to them. So I think just making sure it's not, yeah, like your only outlet or like your only coping mechanism for stress. In a lot of cases, I think that's super important. Because I do think when it comes to athletics, like it's not really like an if, it's a when you're gonna have to adjust your training schedule, like because of injury or illness or whatever it is. So having kind of like, yeah, some other way to continue being you is really important. And I've definitely experienced that. Something too that you just mentioned that I really appreciate in like the work that you do, and I feel like more people need to hear it more often, is that balance is like a myth. It's something that is fleeting and it's not necessarily, it doesn't need to be the goal when it comes to pursuing excellence. It's definitely something that I've recognized since I became a mom about 2 years ago. That it's definitely challenging sometimes to focus on all the rooms in the identity house, so to speak, and feel like, you're doing enough. Can you tell us a little bit more, yeah, about balance and why this might not be necessarily the right goal when we're trying to pursue excellence in something?
Yeah, it's inherently the wrong goal because excellence is that caring deeply, involved engagement, intimacy with something that aligns with your values and goals. Um, in order to care deeply about something and get really involved with it and intimate with it, by definition, you're going to have to say no to other things. You simply can't do it all. Balance, especially as it's conceived of by the self-help industrial complex, gets this notion of I'm going to be the perfect husband, the perfect wife, the perfect runner, the perfect friend. I'm going to stay up on Severance and Succession and Pluribus and all the other highbrow TV shows. I'm going to be in a book club. I'm going to cook dinners. I'm going to keep the house clean. I'm going to be a good employee and on and on and on. And the irony is that balance is supposed to make us feel less stressed, but by trying to be balanced, we end up stressing ourselves out.
Mhm.
It is so much more accurate and feasible to say, I'm going to give myself permission to care deeply about a couple of things and really to give those couple of things my all, even if that, and perhaps especially if that means saying no to other things. Now, you don't want to do this on autopilot. You want to make very conscious, self aware trade offs. But dropping the weight of balance is just so powerful and really frees you up to be your best at the things you care about most. Um, as a mom of a young child, my guess is that you're not spending that much time in all these rooms, or maybe you've even downsized your house and you probably have an athlete room, a coach dietitian room, a mom room, and maybe one or two other rooms. Uh, but you're certainly not doing it all because if you were, you wouldn't be good at any of the things.
Mhm.
So I think that that's the first misconception. The second misconception is there's a difference between balance at any given point of time and balance across an entire life. So when I was reporting on this book, I talked to a lot of old timers, people who have had very long careers and who have been great at what they've done and who are not assholes, who have done it the right way. And when you zoom in on any one point of their life, they don't appear to be very balanced at all. They're generally going all in on one or two things. But when you zoom out and you look across their entire life, they actually look pretty balanced. So they have different seasons of life for emphasizing different things. And I think that is such a better way to think about living a whole, full life than trying to be balanced all the time.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And yes, I have learned some of that the hard way since becoming a parent because yeah, when you add the parent room to your house, it's like that's like a really big important room that takes up a lot of time and energy. So, yeah,
And the little animals that live in the parent room go into all the other rooms and turn them sideways.
exactly. Yeah. It's like, oh, okay. I used to be able to fit everything into my day and I can no longer do that. I need to kind of prioritize shifting things around like the metaphorical burners on the stove. But yeah, I appreciate that because I think it's really helpful to kind of understand that yeah, no season has to be like permanent. It's kind of things are kind of meant to be shifted around. I think something too that can perpetuate this like idea of needing to achieve balance to be successful on is like social media, where
Yeah.
yeah, it appears like the person is just good at everything or doing it all based on what they're choosing to share on the internet. And I know something you talk about a lot in the book is, yeah, some of the harm that can come from fragmented attention spans and being really, enthralled with technology and parasocial relationships. I think when in the running community, where I tend to see this be really problematic, and my specialty is sports nutrition and also eating disorders. Is yeah, when we're kind of like everyone is qualifying for the Boston Marathon, or everyone is running a sub 3 hour marathon, or everyone's doing XYZ, so therefore I need to be doing XYZ. And I do see people, basically start to have parasocial relations start to dictate like their actions and their life. And I know you talk about this a lot in your book. So I mean, tell us a little bit more about like why this really gets in the way of excellence.
The first reason it gets in the way of excellence is oftentimes, and I don't want to say always, but oftentimes, what an influencer is actually excellent at is attracting attention on an internet app.
Mhm.
They're not an excellent parent. They're not an excellent husband or wife. They're not an excellent runner. What they're excellent at is attracting attention on an app. So if you want to be excellent at attracting attention on an app, maybe they're the right role model for you.
Mhm.
But otherwise, perhaps they're not the right role model for you. That's thing number one. Thing number two is so many of these clowns are doped to the gills and they don't mention it. So it's never been easier to get performance enhancing drugs. And if you're not running as a professional athlete and you're not being tested by a federation that does drug testing and you're an influencer, then of course you're going to use performance enhancing drugs. So, my Instagram feed's probably very different than yours, but any dude who's just completely cut, like the person's probably taking performance enhancing drugs and or maybe suffers from disordered eating that I'd want no part of. So why would I model myself after that person? You essentially have to tell yourself that it's all fake, it's all bullshit.
Mhm.
Very rarely, and they exist, but very rarely will you find someone who is visual first, who is their body first, that is giving you a very authentic look at what they do and how they do it. And when you do, it's so refreshing for that reason, but you know it. And I think that the challenge is if you compare your real life to a fiction, you're always going to feel like you're falling short. And if you take an airbrush doped up bar and say that you have to meet it, you're going to run yourself into the ground and make yourself unhealthy.
Mhm. I think too, even if like, kind of what you discuss in this book is enjoying the process, is like, okay, well, maybe you do achieve a goal that you set out of because of social media or because of your own personal goals, and then you're not satisfied. Um, I think paying attention to what goals do I want to maybe have because I'm going to enjoy the process. It sounds like that's kind of what you're alluding to.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like you should never pick goals just because everybody else is doing it.
Mhm.
So many people do that their entire life and they're just imitating what other people are doing. And then they wonder why they're not satisfied or fulfilled. And it's like, well, have you really reflected on what your own values are in the mountains that you want to climb? Because you might want to climb different mountains than other people, and that's totally fine. But we know that like there's very little zen on the tops of mountains, right? The zen is the zen that you bring up along the way. It's one of my favorite quotes. Robert Pirsig first said that. And I think what that means is you better like the process of what you're doing because that's where you're going to find the fulfillment and the satisfaction and the lasting happiness. The worst thing to do is try to get to the top of some peak of a mountain that you don't actually want to climb.
Mhm. And realize, oh, I'm up here now and I didn't
And
actually
now
need
what?
to do
Right.
it.
Like
Yeah.
it didn't change my life, especially as an amateur athlete. I think
Yeah.
so often we think that like if I just get under 3 hours, it's going to change my life. And you'll probably feel really good and proud of yourself for a day, maybe a week if you're lucky. But then you'll be like, I wonder what 255 would be like. Or you'll go on to Let's Run and you'll be like, man, all these chicks are going 240. 3 hours isn't even that. Like it's just never enough. It's how our brain operates. So you better enjoy the process.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. And it's interesting too, like just with how social media works, since I know like you and I have like online platforms as a part of, our business and how we educate and share information. And I know a lot of other people are using social media like solely as consumers, like they don't have a business, they're not, kind of using it as a platform like that. And I always find the two super interesting because I know that as a sports dietitian and a running coach, when I, for example, like I have run the Boston Marathon 3 times, like when I go and post about that or share information about that, like the algorithm that week it seems like that's all it's going to be sharing to other people in the running community. And I hear from people all the time, like, oh, I just really wish I was there. I can't believe I didn't qualify or this or that. I know my business, it gets more engagement because marathon majors get engagement. Like, this is what I try to tell people all the time. And once you start clicking on something, it just feeds more of that to you. And it can be super discouraging. And I never want to come off as like, oh, yeah, that's like why I'm running that marathon is just to get engagement because that's not it at all. And I think a lot of people do find themselves in that situation where they got to the mountaintop and they're like, wait, why am I even here? Um, I know you talk about in the book like the importance in your life on like taking a digital Sabbath each week. And I always try to encourage people if the marathon major week is going to make you feel a certain way, like maybe that's when we get off the internet. Can you talk about the benefits of that? Because I think that's super important. And especially for the person whose like business isn't even on social media, who doesn't need to be there in the first place, you know?
Yeah, I think that social media is best used as a way station.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of research for this. And what I mean by it is if you go on social media and as a result, you come across a mini essay that I wrote and you say, this is really good. I'm going to check out this guy's books. And then you read my book. Now you're off social media, you're doing something. Or if you say, hey, I'm going to listen to Holly's podcast. Well, now you're out on a walk listening to Holly's podcast. Or in our case, if Holly, you say, wow, like, I want to read Brad's book and have him on my show. Now we're here talking. I'm not looking at Instagram, I'm talking to you. That's very fulfilling. That's a
Absolutely.
great way to use social media. If you come across your page, Holly, and someone says, wow, this woman seems like she could help me with my nutrition. Great. Pick up the phone, get a consult, get off social media. If social media is the end destination, if you are terminally online, this is where the term terminally online comes from. If you terminally end there, then it is extremely unhealthy for your emotional and mental health and social health, but it also deteriorates your performance because your brain can trick itself into being like, oh, I'm scrolling social media, looking at all these pictures of runners and videos, therefore I'm doing something. Like, no, no, no. You're not doing anything other than making yourself feel crappy because you're not as good at them. Like, that's not helpful. So,
Mhm.
I think that social media is a destination and using it that way is never good. I think using it with a distinct purpose to gain information that then you can go deeper on offline or in another venue is a very productive way to use social media. It's so important to separate the two. And then I do believe that it's important for all of us to have some period of time where we're just stepping away from it altogether so that we can think our own thoughts, deal with boredom, deal with existential distress. Like these are all important things to face as mature adults. And it's really hard at first, but eventually those couple hours or that one day a week or that one day a month even, like you really can kind of reconnect with who you are. And that's important.
Yeah, especially when it comes to, yeah, like the way of excellence, it's something where you're checking back in with yourself and what you're actually doing and wanting to do and not, yeah, what you think you should be doing based off of random strangers on the internet. I think too, I'm super curious. I feel like this is a very loaded question, but how do you feel about like AI? Because I know this is definitely something that is really starting to also like take up a lot of time and space in people's lives in addition to social media.
All right. It is a loaded question. Um, I'll start by asking a hypothetical question, which is if you could press a button and that button would generate an original song that wins a Grammy Award, and you, Holly Samuel, are now a Grammy Award winner, would you feel fulfilled for getting that Grammy?
No.
No, because all you did was press a button.
Yeah.
That's the risk of AI in a nutshell, is
Yeah.
that it can create pretty good outcomes and they're only going to get better with no effort. Yet all of our satisfaction, all of our fulfillment, all of the relationships we forge with other people and with ourselves comes in the exertion of effort. So, is AI something to orient one's life around? I don't think so. I don't think that would be a good life. I think that's like Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, where you're just on this like algorithmic conveyor belt to a deep, dark abyss of numbness. Not fun. However, might AI be a really powerful tool with specific use cases? Absolutely. You just have to be really cognizant of what those use cases are. I think if you're outsourcing something that's core to what you do or core to who you are, bad idea. I think that if it's expediting or making something that is not core to who you are, that is something that you just kind of have to do easier, that's great. So I think sometimes people think like, oh, Brad is so humanistic, he's anti-AI, and that's not true because I use Microsoft Excel. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, right? I'm a sole proprietor, so I have to pay taxes. And you could argue, like, well, why don't you actually do the math of all your revenue and all your expenses? Why do you use a spreadsheet? And the answer is because I'm not a mathematician. If I was a mathematician, I wouldn't use a spreadsheet to do math. So I don't use AI to write because I'm a writer. But you better believe it, I use a spreadsheet. And if and when the AI can make it easier for me to keep track of all those numbers, I'll use it. So I just think it's so important to ask yourself, like, are you using the tool or is the tool using you and shaping you into a different kind of person?
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that because I agree. I think it's super nuanced and I would like to see people just not reaching towards it for everything. Because I agree, there's a little bit of, it's important to be bored and have some struggle and challenge in order to just be human and have like a fulfilled life.
There's also some really good research that shows in therapeutic, and I'm going to extend this to coaching relationships,
Yeah.
that so much of the efficacy of the relationship, or excuse me, so much of the efficacy of the process comes down not necessarily to the method that the coach or therapist is using, but to the relationship between the
Mhm.
patient and the therapist or the athlete and the coach.
Mhm.
And it's just a dystopian world where you'd think that I'm going to have a better relationship with a synthetic bot that lives in a server in Virginia. He
Mhm.
don't even lives, that exists, that is a series of binary numbers in a server in Virginia than I am with a real person. And
Mhm.
I can't logically tell you why that's wrong, but that feels very wrong to me.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. And yeah, the research on AI is super interesting too. Like, it kind of seems to also mimic some of the research on like short term, like short video content and like scrolling and that type of stuff where, yeah, it's
Oh, it just
essentially
it ruins your brain.
making us dumber. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I think a good metaphor here is fitness.
mhm.
So it's a metaphor that I've used before. If you just never run and all you do is drive and you never walk and you never lift anything, all you use is a forklift, like your body's going to atrophy.
Mhm.
So what do? You have a running practice. You walk, you go to the gym and you lift heavy things. That keeps your body healthy. As a result, you have good function, hopefully for many, many years. Now, that doesn't mean that you should never use a forklift. If I'm going to Wayfair to get furniture, although Wayfair is only online, I don't know, some Crate and Barrel to get furniture, and I'm buying a bed, I'm not going to try to lift the bed myself. I'm going to use a machine to lift the bed. But if I only use machines to do everything for me, I'm going to deteriorate. And it's just the same exact thing is true with our brains. So we need to think about like cognitive and emotional fitness. If I ask AI, if I rewind and God forbid, I feel so bad for kids growing up right now. If I was high school Brad and I asked AI what to say to the girl that I had a crush on, that wouldn't be good for my emotional fitness. Like I need to put myself out there and exert myself. Um, so it's a tool, and we've just got to keep it a tool and not make it the main thing.
Yeah, I love that. I know, thank goodness it wasn't a thing in high school. Oh my God. Yeah, I think like a pattern too that I've noticed in my type of clientele and people who listen to this podcast in the endurance athlete world is we're really excited, I think, and social media I also think perpetuates this, but like we're very excited to like make ourselves uncomfortable through training, like under our own terms and conditions.
Yeah.
Um, and then sometimes when it comes to the discomfort of, taking the unplanned rest day or showing up to race day and the weather's not ideal for a PR or having to eat more to navigate training more when that's super uncomfortable or a changing and aging body over time we're kind of like I did not sign up for that, like I don't want that discomfort. And again,
We
I'm
don't get to choose though.
yeah, like this has happened to me too, but I think for a lot of people it can almost make them spiral and freeze. And again, I think social media kind of perpetuates this where it's like yeah, just like be hard, get out there, do it no matter what. But I think a lot of the times the harder thing for I know a lot of my clients is like the thing that is stereotypically should be easier, like eating more food or resting. I know you talk a lot about in the book how important like rest is to the process of pursuing excellence. Can you can you try and convince our audience why it's important?
So the simplest equation that I have is stress plus rest equals growth.
Yeah.
And everyone knows this intellectually that has studied any kind of training or creativity. You've got to expose yourself to stimulus and challenge, and then you have to rest and recover for the body to adapt. If all you do is expose yourself to stimulus and challenge, eventually the body breaks down. If you never expose yourself to stimulus and challenge, you don't grow. So rest is an integral part of making progress. It's not separate from the work. It's not something that you do at the expense of the work. It is a part of the work. That's why professional athletes take rest so seriously. Just like it takes discipline to push through tough feelings and get started, it also takes discipline to rest. And I think too often we only think about having the discipline to go and not the discipline to pull back. And both are really important kinds of discipline that you have to get comfortable exerting. I think another challenge with rest is there is now this entire, I talked about the self-help industrial complex and balance. Well, now there's also the recovery industrial complex that tries to turn rest into something to achieve at. So it
Yeah.
used to be you're tired and you sleep because that's recovery. Well, now so many people want to get the perfect sleep score. I wouldn't be surprised if this already exists. If it doesn't, it's probably coming. There's going to be Strava for sleep, Holly, where people are going to go post their sleep segment and you're going to compete to see who slept great. There's this idiot online named Brian Johnson who already does this. It's absurd. It is
No,
so absurd.
no.
So it's hard enough for pushers to rest. And now you're going to make rest a competition. Like, no, 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 no. Rest isn't meant to be work. By
Hmm.
definition, that defeats the purpose of rest. So if you are serious about what you want to do and if you want to grow at it, then you have to take rest seriously. I once had a very wise coach say that the difference between someone who is interested in performance and someone with an exercise addiction is the person who is interested in performance will rest and will shut it down when they are injured, and the person with an exercise addiction will not. And
Hmm.
the same thing is true with writing. The person that is addicted to external success and needing to be busy all the time will never step away from the manuscript. The person who wants to write a great book will take many long walks and have many days, if not weeks, where they're not working on their book.
Mm. I love that. Yeah, I think it's super true. I think it kind of also goes back to that like obsession, tendency that some people can have when they're going to pursue excellence, where yeah, you kind of get in your own way. And I think
Yeah,
it's
and this is so easy to say, it's hard to do. I mean, as a
yeah.
writer, probably because I'm a pro, I don't make this mistake as often. Like I really know when I need to step away, and I do. As an
Mhm.
athlete, I mess this up all the time.
Yeah.
Like it takes very little discipline for me to go crush myself in the gym. It
Mhm.
takes so much discipline for me on a deload week to truly keep 4 reps in reserve or to only do 2 sets instead of 3 or 4. It is an ongoing challenge. But that's part of the practice. That's part of the pursuit. Like that challenge, if you get curious about it, should be every bit as interesting as the challenge of pushing really hard.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And I think too, in probably all athletic spaces, but keeping it to endurance, I think people have maybe an easier time with rest when they like accomplish their goal. Like they PR'd in the marathon. So sure, I'll take 2 weeks off after, or their workout was really good. So they're fine taking the rest day, or things are going well. So they're fine taking the rest day. I think sometimes it's like when the race goes badly, or you don't meet your goal, or you had to take the rest day because you were sick. So now you feel like you got to catch up. I
You
think
got to
some,
compensate. Yeah.
yeah, it's like the compensation trap that a lot of people fall into. I think, could you talk a little bit about, I know in the book you talk about like gumption, which I love that word, but when we kind of are maybe losing that or really burnt out or almost like want to get on like a revenge tour because things
Yeah.
didn't go how we wanted, why it's important to rest and like carefully get back on the horse in maybe a strategic way to not keep burning yourself out.
Yeah. I mean, I think because I know this audience is predominantly good runners, don't listen to me. Look what Sarah Hall just did.
Yeah.
It was New York City, right? She had a really poor race
Hmm.
and she stepped away and she rested. And she talked about how hard it was to
Hmm.
step away and to process that. And then
Hmm.
she gradually eased back into training. And then she had a phenomenal race at CIM a couple weeks later.
Hmm.
She didn't go bury herself and try to do a tempo run the day after her disaster at New York. Like
Hmm.
she stepped away. I think she went on a little vacation. She rested. And
Hmm.
it's only because of that that she was able to then go on the revenge tour.
Hmm.
So it really is important. Gumption. I also love that word. Gumption is a sense of commitment and stick-to-itiveness to the process. And it is this like intrinsic internal enthusiasm you have for what you're doing that allows you to stick to it even when things aren't going well. And it is this feeling of nothing can stop me. Like I'm just going to stay on the train tracks of progress and I'm going to keep going down those tracks amidst all kinds of obstacles. That doesn't mean I'm not going to rest. Again, rest is a part of moving down those train tracks.
Hmm.
Um, and it's a sense of stick to itiveness that is kind of rare in today's world. But I think there's so much satisfaction in saying like I care deeply about this and I'm going to commit to it. And
Hmm.
thank goodness, and something I'm trying to do with this chapter of the book in particular is like caring deeply is not cringe. Like
Hmm.
saying that you want to get the best out of yourself on something is not cringe. That's actually pretty cool. And that's what gumption's all about.
Yeah, on that topic, a trend that I hate on social media right now is to just like run a marathon with no training. I don't know if you've seen any of this. It usually
No, I
gets sent,
haven't.
it gets sent to me. Um, and it's like, I'm just gonna go run a marathon with like no training. And it's kind of, yeah, like it's an excuse to be like, oh my gosh, look how amazing I did with no training and be
Yeah,
very,
it's bullshit. It's self-handicapping. The reason
yeah,
that you didn't train is because one, you either don't care about the sport, or two, you're scared that if you did train and you didn't go fast, then you'd have you wouldn't have an excuse.
yeah.
It's no different than the cool kid that everyone can remember from middle school or high school who never tried in gym class. They weren't cool. They were insecure and scared.
Mm-hmm.
So it's better to try your hardest and come up short than it is to be too cool to care.
Yeah, absolutely. I think something you had said in the book too, I think it was like putting yourself in the arena, like to go try really hard at something. It, yeah, it makes you super vulnerable. And that I think is that discomfort sometimes that people are like, I am not comfortable with that kind of discomfort. So yeah, I mean, I think both of us just kind of encouraging people to care and go all in and like commit to the process because you enjoy it, despite the outcome happening or not happening.
Yeah, 100%. And outcomes do matter because I think sometimes what happens is people say, well, process over outcomes, outcomes don't matter. It's like, no, like, there's a reason that there's a scoreboard in sport or a clock in a marathon. Sometimes getting promoted makes a huge difference in your life. Financially, it makes a difference. Your responsibilities change. All that stuff's important, but stressing about the outcome doesn't move you closer to it. What moves you closer to it is digging where your feet are and really losing yourself in the process. And you don't find satisfaction on the podium. You find satisfaction in all the work that it did to get there. And we've got to hold both these things in the same time. That yes, outcomes matter. Yes, you can want an outcome and you can want it deeply. And life is the process. Like 99.99999% of life is the process. I mean, think about how long does it take to cross the tape and then get in the little finishers area of a marathon? I mean, you cross the tape in a second, and then they give you a water bottle and a banana, and they put the medal on you, and that lasts like a minute, and then you're out.
Yeah.
And how long do you train for a marathon? I don't know, 3 months, 4 months. I don't know how many hours are in 4 months, but like the finish is truly like less than 1/100th of a percent. So we shouldn't over-index on that. We should over-index on the process.
Yeah. And I think too, in that regard, like if it didn't go how you wanted on the day, it's like the process isn't just worthless. It's like
No, it's
you
so
did the work.
important. Yeah,
Hmm.
you did the work. And like that gets back to this other theme that is throughout the book, which is like the things that you work on and the way in which you work on them also work on you.
Hmm.
So if you pay attention and you care deeply and you lose yourself in the process and you focus there, you're not just becoming a better marathoner. Hopefully, you're becoming a better person. You're learning about discomfort. You're learning about pushing your limits. You're learning about rest and renewal. Maybe you're making relationships in the running community. Maybe you're developing a healthier relationship with your body image. Maybe you're really struggling with your body image and you're learning something from that too. Like all of these things are shaping you as a person. And the result is that you should be a better mom, a better dad, a better spouse, a better friend. That is every bit as important as the finishing time in the marathon, especially if you're not a pro. Like if you're not getting paid to do this, then I would argue that the result is nice. And again, like you should want to win. I'm not telling you whatever win means for you. Like go try to win, be a killer. But you're also winning because you're becoming a better, kinder, stronger person, hopefully.
Yeah. So well said. I really hope people go read this book. Can you tell us where they can go find it? And I'll make sure to link all of this in the show notes too.
Yeah, you bet. So you can get the book wherever you buy books. Most people buy books online these days, so you can get it at Amazon or bookshop.org. Barnes and Noble, you can go to your independent bookstore. Hopefully they have it. It's called The Way of Excellence. My name is Brad Stulberg, so you just put that into Google. And that's the best place to get the book. And I have a podcast called Excellence Actually, where I talk about the stuff that we talked about today. And I'm on social media on Instagram, and it's just my name at Brad Stulberg. And I promise I will never post a video of myself from a cold plunge.
Yeah, I know your posts are like black and white text, but they get the most work done, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's intentional. I mean, we could have spent a long time on social media, but
Yeah.
like it's an intentional decision to be idea forward, not me forward. because I think being me forward would just be too stressful, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I love it. I really, it's really cool to be able to kind of like look you in the eyes, through Zoom virtually, but and say thank you so much, for your work. It's really, I know it's helped me a ton, and it's going to help a lot more people. So yeah, it's just really cool to meet you and have this come full circle. Some of the, pros of the internet.
Thank you, Holly. I appreciate it. It was a pleasure.
All right, so let's ask you the end of the podcast question. And I didn't prep you for this, so I'm curious what your answer is. But say you are like crossing the finish line, or you're in the gym and you're pulling weight, and it's a PR. It's like the best day. Everything's coming together. Good performance day. What song would be playing to embody how you're feeling in that moment?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask me what song would be playing like right before the lift.
You could
And
answer
that
that too.
no, that would not be on brand for me. So I'm not going to answer that. My kids can't be in the gym on those days because of the song. No, I digress. Um, what song would be playing to embody that moment? That's such a good question. You're gonna have to edit out this pause because I'm really thinking, and I love music. I'm thinking through this.
Music is one of the rooms in my identity house, so that's
Me
why I
too.
asked this
Not
question.
not not playing not playing it, but appreciating it. Um, See, I like so much sad music, but that wouldn't be sad. I like bittersweet music.
Ooh,
Uh, Probably something by John Prine, the singer-songwriter.
okay.
Um, or Jason Isbell, but I can't come up with a particular song.
Gotcha. No, those are no one said those artists before, and I'm not familiar with them. So now I have more things to learn and look up, which is great.
Yeah, the song that would be playing before is very clear. It's a DMX song with Eminem.
Yeah.
But the chorus is just not something that is very pleasant or
But that's
yeah.
what you need sometimes in those
That
moments.
is. And I've learned that with myself, back to curiosity. Like I've learned that that can be like a branch of my tree, and like there is a switch that I can turn on to compete.
Yes.
And then I can turn it off really quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's true. I know it's like the what the parents are listening to. It's like what the kids think the parents are listening to, and then what they're actually listening to yeah, to perform. I love that answer though. I'll have to look those artists up. But yeah, I
Oh,
keep
Jason
like
Isbell especially is the best. He's like the best living singer-songwriter currently working, I
yeah.
think. Phenomenal.
Yeah, I try to keep like a playlist of people's answers because it's just like, the most epic, awesome playlist of inspiring music. So yeah, I appreciate it. Definitely not a song made by AI. So that's good. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Holly.